The concept is to actually create a very detailed, very specific, very creatively written, vivid idea of the vision you are headed to. And you want every team member to be aware of that vision, right? You want them to know specifically how your short and medium and long-term goals tie into that vivid vision. Everybody knows what you're aimed at, so that when you give somebody a project, when you ask somebody to get something done, they can understand exactly how this ties in to our vision, right? And they understand why they're there and why you're asking them to do it.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and turn them into cash-based multimillionaire entrepreneurs. Warning, if you're a doctor who listens to this podcast regularly, you will make millions of dollars. Do not listen to this podcast unless you want to be a successful clinic owner who helps thousands of patients achieve their health goals and adds more money than you can imagine to your bank account. You've been warned.
Welcome to episode 110 of the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we give you the exact tactics, strategies, and mindset that you need to fulfill your destiny by helping thousands of people in your community, dominating your market and your life. I'm one of your hosts, Rory Morgan, along with fellow hosts Jennifer Gligoric and Tracy Sundkvist. And by the end of today's episode, you're going to know exactly how to hire talented individuals who are excited to play an important role in helping you grow your business. So no more deadbeat hires, no more hires that don't work out, no more realizing that you made the wrong hire but leaving them on the team anyway just because you don't feel like hiring again and you feel like the work needs to get done. We want to hire the right people for the right job who actually are goal-oriented, action-oriented, and want to achieve the goals of the business, right? So that's a big deal. Think about how much of a difference that would make when you have the right people in the right seats, playing the right role, and actually excited about personal growth and business growth.
Yeah, it changes everything.
Yep. So the first thing I want to say as we get in, what we're going to be doing, right? We're going to talk about, number one, the process. There's a process you can follow. But number two, we're also going to talk about, like, how do we hire cultural fits? How do we hire people who want to be there? How do we find the right people, right? They want to work as hard as you want to work. They want to kind of fit in with your value system. Super important, right? But the first piece I want to make sure you're aware of is, turns out, most business owners don't know this, but there are specific stages of business growth. Harvard Business Review has studied this. MIT has studied this. Businesses grow in specific stages, and there are specific hires you need to make in a specific order, because the business has certain needs at different stages. This episode is not about that. We are going to do a future episode helping you understand what those stages are. Today's episode is just about the hiring process. So we're not going to talk about each stage and which hire you need to make at each stage. We're going to go ahead and just get right into what is the process you should be following. So there's a couple things you need to be clear on that you need before you start hiring. The first thing is you need to have some form of documented vision. I'm a big believer in something called the vivid vision. Got this idea from Cameron Herold, who wrote a book called The Vivid Vision. And the concept is to actually create a very detailed, very specific, very creatively written and vivid idea of the vision you are headed to. And you want every team member to be aware of that vision, right? You want them to know specifically how your short and medium and long-term goals tie into that vivid vision. Everybody knows what you're aimed at, so that when you give somebody a project, when you ask somebody to get something done, they can understand exactly how this ties in to our vision, right? And they understand why they're there and why you're asking them to do it. When you hire someone, you want to make sure they start with actually believing in your vision. They start there. Number two, you want to have a documented RRRE document. What that stands for is the role, the results that role is responsible for, the responsibilities for that role. Like, what are the things that have to get done every day? When am I going to have to turn my work in, right? Like, what are you responsible for? And then the expectations. And the expectations would be like, hey, what are our values? How do we actually behave while we're performing our work? What's expected of us as people when we're here at our job, right? That is a document you've got to have before you hire, because that's going to be part of your job post.
Yes. And I want to just say, if you are using your EHR or if you're using an actual HR software, a lot of this is programmed into it. So let's say, everything from, oh, you want to post for a job. There are EHRs that do this now. They have a really great HR program that plugs into all EHRs. It's called Bamboo. And no matter which one you use, you have to write this all out in order to be able to post. And it'll go on your website, and it'll even go out to LinkedIn. It'll go out to even job boards for you. And so, but it asks you and it takes you down a journey up to all these, to these different questions. What are they expected to do? Tell us about a first day. All of this, when you figure this out, it'll even do an onboarding sequence. So when the person starts, you'll say, log in, and it'll say, we need you to fill out your new hire paperwork. And then by the end of the day, this is what you would have accomplished. Day 2, we expect you to do this. Learn the script for the phones,
right,
and be able to answer the phone using the script that we provide and to do it well, and then day 3, and it can actually be automated in some part. I mean, you're going to be watching them, you're going to be the one giving them feedback on it, but there are a ton of tools for this too. But it also helps you make a better hire. And the more professionally you're out there in the workplace, the better candidate you get. Stop, if you're a clinic owner, saying, well, we'll just figure it out. I know you know what you're doing because, your resume says that you have, 3 years, and Bob referred you to me. Let's stop doing that, and let's have a vision, get people plugged into that vision, and then have a professional journey the staff goes through. They're going to have a lot more respect, and they're going to be a lot more easier to plug in and to get you where you need to go, and for the patients as well.
Jennifer, you're so right. I think just to expand a little on that, you need to be very clear on how quickly you want this person to be up and ready and productive. So depending on the skill that you're hiring for, I mean, if you're hiring for an associate, it's going to take a bit longer. But if you're hiring for a front desk or a treatment assistant, you might have a plan that they are up and productive within 2 weeks or 30 days. And you literally need to plan something out so that you can test at the end of that time that they are where you need them to be so that the business can move forward. Otherwise, what ends up happening is that there's just this ongoing assessment, this ongoing training. There's never an end game. And you definitely want to go into the recruitment process having an end game.
Yeah, and they have to know when you say being productive, well, you have to measure that. It has to be measurable. So how are you measuring it, and how are they measuring it? So they know ahead of time, am I being productive or am I not? Do I need to ask for help because I'm not hitting my goals, or I am?
So in other words, what you're saying here is basically there has to be a moment in time where there is a shift from training to, hey, as of today, you are required to produce XYZ every XYZ amount of time.
Yep.
And I need that report on my desk by 8 a.m. on Monday morning, right? There has to become this shift from I am consuming the training to I am producing a result for the business.
Yes, I am trained. I am now a fully fledged employee and, a fully active member of the team. Absolutely.
And I can tell you right now, being in many businesses, but what I would also say specifically in my own business, so I'll just to be a little bit vulnerable, the first very many employees I hired, let's call it 5 or 6 or maybe even 10. I mean, I honestly don't know the number, but I thought my role was to be their friend, and I thought that my role was to make sure that they liked me and that they felt comfortable and that they felt like they could be themselves. If I made people feel that way, they would give me their best. And what I found out was when you make people feel that way, they just show up to work and do whatever they would have done if they stayed at home. They literally don't feel accountable to anything. And I'm not saying there aren't some people who were like decent, but the reality is you can still make people feel comfortable, but you can make them feel comfortable by feeling supported, where they know that if they're stuck, you're there to help them, right? I'm here to help you. I'm here to support you. But let's be very clear. You're expected to produce a result. And if you don't produce that result, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, but they also don't feel safe. I'm going to tell you that employees that are in environments that do not have any structure like that, they don't feel safe at that job. They're still looking the entire time. They know something's not right because they've worked at other places where they were held accountable. They knew that, they knew exactly what was expected of them, and they knew when they were on target and when they were not off target. And that is a safety. If I do these things, I will have a job. I'll be able to pay for my kids, my house. That's where employees want to be. That's where everybody wants to be. If I do this, I will get this, right? When we become entrepreneurs, we're taking a lot of risks because we can do all this and not get that, right? So that's a totally different mindset, right? So you want to provide, like with kids even, you want to have a nice straight boundaries. If you do these things, we're going to be really happy. Our patients are going to be happy. And we're going to get to the next level. And we might change these things depending on where we get, because this is where we're headed. You're going to graduate from high school, right? If that's a kid. And here, we're going to go to different locations, right? Mm-hmm. This is where we're starting. As long as that's clear, they can feel very safe. Unsafe staff, they're not going to be loyal. Those are the staff that you cannot grow with that if they're feeling unsafe. And when you have a loosey-goosey environment like that, they don't really feel safe.
This also, I think, plugs in very well to the next thing that you need to have in place before you hire. So we've already covered the vivid vision. We've already covered the RRRE document. I think what comes up next there is your meetings cadence. So it's all about having one-on-ones with the team to know that everybody's pulling in the same direction. And then the second thing is to have regular weekly one-on-ones with each individual on that team. And that is the platform where they get to share where they're at. They get to report to you what they have accomplished through the week, what they're struggling with. And also in that time, you can see what support they need. Rory, this is something that you actually do very well.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, those are the things you need, right? Like we've got to have our training onboarding sequence. We've got to have our meetings cadence and, some of the other things we mentioned. I guess I don't want to keep beating that dead horse because I want to keep moving this along for the listeners here. But so let's jump into where to hire, right? In my opinion, the list I'm about to give you is actually specifically being given in the order of best to worst. Okay. Now, it's not like one is 100 times better than another. These are, there's some similarities here. But where I would start was saying your best bet as a clinical-based business to find a great employee is going to be your past or your current patients. These are people who already love you. They've already paid for your product. They've gotten results from your service, your treatment, right? They believe in the mission. They believe that what you're doing is a great thing. They didn't complain about the price. They're all in on what you are doing. That is the first part of a cultural fit, is they fundamentally believe in the product or the service. And then from there, we can evaluate, like, are they a fit in other ways with their skill sets and their character traits, right? That is what it is. So the next place is going to be colleague referrals. So asking your friends, people you've met at trade shows, other docs ask them next. Next place is going to be a recruiter, right? So actually paying a professional recruiter. This is their job. You're going to get a good process from them. They're going to vet people for you. But I don't think it's quite as high as referrals from your colleagues or your current patients.
Depends on the recruiter, since you've got two ex-recruiters on your podcast today.
No kidding. You have two ex-recruiters here. So yeah, of course, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, I think the thing is when you really have thought about your own hiring process, I think you can really know how to mine gold out of past and current patients as well as your referrals from your colleagues, right? If you don't know how to mine the gold, then like recruiter's really going to be your only bet that makes any sense, to be honest with you. So I would say the next one is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a professional network. It's going to be better than any of the other social media channels. Next is going to be your other social channels. That's particularly going to be good if you have a very active social media presence where people can see your culture there. After that, I would say you have your local college, employment advisors, right? Job fairs and stuff like that. And the final thing, and this is maybe perhaps the interesting thing, is the job boards. ZipRecruiter, Indeed, right? All of these places. I think this is the first place most people go. I would suggest to you that it's actually the last place you should go. All right. Yes, you're going to get more leads, but you're also going to get a lot more low quality candidates. People have been out of work for months and months. Nobody wants to hire them, or, they never find a job that's good enough for them, right? That they're just too picky, right? These are not going to be the best employees usually. Still plenty of good ones, but it's not your ideal place.
I want to come in here for a little bit about recruiters. That also includes staffing agencies. If you, depending on your area, you may have healthcare staffing agencies that only deal with people in healthcare. It can free up your money. You don't have to pay for FICA, FUTA. You don't have to pay for your workforce. You get an invoice from the agency that pays all that. Is it going to be more? Yeah, because you're paying for that extra fee for them. You can also call them and say, Jane's not working out. This is why she didn't work out. I need somebody more like this. It is hit and miss. It depends on where you live. You might have a great agency like that where you live. You may not have them at all. Again, for local colleges or any college, there is somebody on the staff there whose job it is to tout the numbers of how their graduates get jobs. They have a job board. That's their job to put that out there. And if they know of anyone, they're going to make sure to send them to you. So those are going to be better, again, than job boards. Again, in your job communication, you want to talk about who you're looking for and what the job entails. You do want to have a little bit of your culture fit in there. And you do want to make sure that the applicant provides 3 references and that you check their references.
100%. We definitely like our references. So, okay, Jennifer, did you mention that we need to actually, when we post the job, we actually have to give, like we're telling them what is included in the job, we're telling them what they're going to get paid. And then when that person applies, we actually have multiple interviews. It's not just like, hey, I seem to like your vibe. You're hired, right? We want to put them through a process. So what I would suggest is your first interview after they've applied. So they apply. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at their resume. You're going to look at their social media profiles. You should reject a lot of people, right? You've got the social media profile. They're just drunk every weekend. There's just like party photos. They're like completely out of control. NSFW content on their social media. Like, this is not going to make the best employee. And that's something you have to take a look at. So they pass that, right? Like, okay, they've got a good job history. They haven't had 17 jobs in the last, 7 months, right? They stay 2 weeks at each job, right? Okay, you can get first interview. That's going to be done via Zoom usually, okay? You need to keep in mind, you've got to get this done as fast as possible. So you want to have your admin person, or if you're you yourself, as soon as you get a good application, get them scheduled for a Zoom. If you let these applications sit for a week or 2 weeks before you respond to them, or even one full day, the good candidates get hired quickly. They get hired quickly. Like, other people notice that they're good candidates as well, and they get offered other jobs, right? So you have to understand that. Okay, so a couple questions you're going to ask on this Zoom interview. What attracted you to this particular job? How do you take care of your own health, right? Because we're running a health business. Hey, tell me about your own health journey, right? Well, how do you take care of your health? Remember, we're screening for someone who's going to fit culturally with a health clinic, right? Why do you want to be a part of helping people take control of their own challenges and their own health, right? Given what you know about this position already, right? Because they're just basically from the job post. What are you looking for? Like, what is it that makes you think that you would be the best at this, right? Given what you know about what we're looking for. So those questions, actually, you're paying attention to their answers. Like, are they giving articulate answers that make sense? Or is it just kind of like, well, I like to be healthy,
I need money and I need to pay my bills. Right? Yeah. That's usually what most people are thinking on their first Zoom interview. So I would also say, when you're scheduling that Zoom interview or having your assistant schedule it, be sure to put, this is our website. This is more about us. Here's a little bit about our culture. Go ahead and give that to them, because if they're good applicants, their parents are helping them, their friends and everybody else. So that gives them a time to actually do the research a little bit. You have to also be savvy of what, job seekers are going through. They're probably applying a lot of different places. So you want to give them the opportunity to actually look at that and go, okay, even if it's right before the interview, so that they see how quick, and savvy they are on that, and give that to them.
The other thing is, so many applicants become used to interview type questions. So don't be scared to throw in a couple of curveballs there. One of the ones that I really enjoyed using, my superpower almost, was to ask them very directly, so what was the thing that you disliked most about your last role? And see if they can actually be real with you, right? Because they're not expecting that at all. And then once they share that with you, your follow-up would be, well, how did you handle that? And hopefully it's not, well, I'm here talking to you because I can't handle it. Hopefully they can share with you their resiliency, how they problem solved, how they tried to make things right.
That's actually a good question too for the test phase. You don't have to do that. I would probably probe that more if they made it to the second interview, because that would go right into, and how were you able to handle that difficult situation, you know?
Yeah. Really, really good interview question. Another thing I could say, right? But I mean, keep in mind in this context for this first one, it's like we're looking for this indication that they want to be a part of this type of business. Like the vivid vision we sent them, the website we sent them, all this, like, here's our culture, all the info that was like, they're like that. I'm excited by that. And here's why I'm excited, right? Not just, oh yeah, I think I would be really good at answering the phone because I'm nice. Right? We're looking for something beyond that. I've always been very friendly and people told me that I treat them well. Not going to get it done. Okay, so when they pass that interview, what I want to do is I want to go to a test phase. Okay, so if they don't pass, we'll just say, hey, we'll follow up via email after we've done our interviews. Just stay tuned. And then you can send them an email later that day saying, hey, we went with someone else. But if they do pass, you want to basically tell them, hey, we really love you. Really excited to get to know you more. The next stage in our hiring process is I want to get a sample of your work. I want to find out how you work. And so I'm going to send you a task to complete. And I need to make sure, first of all, are you going to have time to do this in the next 24 hours? Okay, cool. Because it's going to be due within 24 hours. I want to make sure I send it to you in a time frame that's going to work for you. And then, for example, if you're hiring for an admin job, we might send them an admin task like, hey, can you set up a project in a project management tool? All right, something like that. Or, whatever. Show me how you do this thing on a spreadsheet that can actually, get this data organized correctly on a spreadsheet. Yeah.
Rory, a really great tool that a lot of practice owners use would be, it's something called an inbox test. And that would literally just be the practice owner looking at a bunch of different responsibilities that, say, a front desk would need to be able to negotiate. And then he would say, if this was on your desk on a Monday morning, how would you prioritize what you started with? How would you organize it and get through? How would you approach it? That's a really good practical way to see, where are they going to focus? Are they going to focus on the more important things first and put the less important things later? And also to understand logically, how are they processing things? It's very simple, it's very quick, and it gives you great insight into what they're going to be like.
And then do you want them to explain rationale as well? Like, why did you choose this? Or are you just more concerned with what they chose?
I wouldn't need them to be able to objectively explain their choices. Remember, we're using this as a filtering tool. Yeah. So it's just a case of doing something very quickly to give you a clear understanding of how they're thinking about things.
Yeah.
Rather than making it a long assessment with detailed feedback. We don't want to make it more.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, so just to give one more example of a role, like if this is a sales role or a front desk role where they're going to be on the phone, it should go without saying that you should literally be sending them your script and they should be required to demonstrate that they learn the script, right? So like you give them the script, 24 hours later, you call them up and we do a role play together, right? Like prove to me that you can follow the script I sent you. If they can't do that, they're just not going to be a sales guy. They're not going to be a front desk person. They're not going to take the job seriously. And you have to realize, like, you will get back crappy work from people. You will get some submissions where it's like, oh, that was disappointing. Don't move to the next stage. You have to be confident in disqualifying people.
But you also have to keep in mind that this is kind of like dating. As much as you're trying to evaluate how amazing is this person coming in, they're doing the exact same thing for you. So you don't want to have such a bad experience that the really good ones think, oh, what a dick. I don't want to work with someone like that.
Yeah, I think that is important to mention because we're kind of focusing on how are are you screening people out? But that first Zoom interview, it's like, number one, you should be able to impress people with your vivid vision, with what you have on your website, with the info you've sent about them. Like, oh man, this sounds like a cool culture. Number two, these questions we suggested on that Zoom call, this should feel friendly and natural. It's not like, I need you to tell me right now why you want to work for us, right?
In 10 seconds, go.
Yes.
Or worse, we're a family here. Do you want to be part of our family? Every time I hear that, I'm like, dysfunction.
Yeah.
As in the staffing, I can't tell you when I was doing staffing how many times I said, take that out of your lexicon. Just delete that phrase. People have families. They don't need a work family. They need to, this is about their career and being professional. So if you want to have a professional environment, you want to take out the whole, let's just be a family. It isn't going to be loosey-goosey like that. There's a job. They're going to do the job. It's transactional completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good insight that we maybe should have mentioned earlier. Okay, so let's assume they make it through. They've got a good work quality, right? Okay, we get to a final in-person interview, and there's a few things that should be taking place. So this should be pretty long. Okay, it shouldn't be just like, hey, we interview for 30 minutes. Right. You're going to make sure. So this has already been presented earlier, but you're going to hand them a physical copy of the RRRE document for their role. Right. You're going to walk them through, hey, these are your responsibilities. And you're like literally going to show them, here's how it works. Like, this is what you would be doing. And this is how often you'd be doing it, right? And here's the room where you would be doing this other responsibility, right? You want them to get a good picture of what it's like. You could potentially have an employee walk them through and demonstrate that, right? Like, if you're hiring them for the same role. Keep in mind here, also what you're doing is you are trying to demonstrate for them how awesome your clinic is, right? So they should be like, think about having them come in for like your morning huddle where you're sharing testimonials about patients who got better and their lives were changed. And like, that's kind of where the interview starts, is like they show up and they get to participate in that. And then we kind of start the interview process. Hey, like, let me walk you through what this job's going to look, right? Next would be, no matter what, like, we want to make sure they see, some sort of testimonial wall. Like, these are the results we get for our patients, right? So again, you're selling the business to them, right? You're selling your personality, your culture, making sure they're excited about working for you. You want to recover your vision, the goals of the business, and why the role is important to accomplishing those goals, right? So all of this is being done, and then starts, hey, it's time to get to know you better. I really want to find out what's going on with you. And I want to find out if you're the right fit, right? And there's so many questions. I think we're a little short on time, but maybe each of us could just give one of our favorite questions to ask in an interview. I can tell you one of my favorites is, can you please, there's two in my mind, but I think I'm going to choose this one, which is, can you please describe for me a project that you worked on, or a team environment that you were a part of and you had a specific goal or outcome you needed to achieve? Can you describe for me your role in that project and exactly how you went about solving the challenges and actually achieving the result? Now, what you're looking for is not for them to say, yes, it was XYZ in 1973. What you're looking for is, can they articulate the specific nuances of that project and give you the specific challenges they ran into with nuance and detail? Because anyone who played a key role in doing that would have had very intimate knowledge of what took place. And if you get generic, sort of like undetailed answers, what you know is they're making something up because they've never done that before.
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump in there next. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I'm absolutely joking. I hate that damn question. Please don't ever ask that, because you're begging for a BS answer. I think a much better one is, how would you describe your dream job? What would your dream job really look like? And then C, how clear are they on how they're thinking about their career, actually? What is it that gets them motivated? What kind of responsibilities are they looking for? Are they actually looking for growth and a place where they can grow with with the practice, or they just want to get stuck doing the same thing and kind of peak there. You can get so much incredible information positioning something that is more visionary than kind of really drilling down into, can they do this? Can't they do this? So try and balance your questions with, absolutely, you can focus on the competency-based questions, but don't be afraid to kind of tap into that big picture as well.
So basically, like, you're looking for answers that are like, instead of like, oh, freedom and, the ability to work from home, and, so it's kind of like there's no real like passion for growth there. Whereas if they were to say something like, I am looking, like, my ideal job would be something that I get a new problem every single week and nobody in the business has any idea how to solve it, but I'm the one who gets responsibility and I just get to put my nose to the grindstone and figure it out because, like, I just love working on important, challenging problems. Like, if they said something like that, you'd get a much clearer idea of the personality of someone who wants to grow and really build something, right?
Yeah, that's like the question. My favorite question is to just say, of everything I've told you about the job so far and the company, what excites you the most? And then when you think about, if we were to hire you today, what do you feel is going to be your special sauce that you're going to bring to the role that you can really rock this position and that you're most excited to do? And if they've done it before or if they've had challenges, they'll say, well, because one thing I do say is, if you're experiencing challenges in the business, to talk about those challenges with people that you're hiring and to say, we're really having a hard time with this right now, because you'll be amazed at some of the responses a good candidate will have. And when you said you had a problem with that, I worked somewhere 2 years ago and we did this and it didn't work. But I know that if I could do the X, Y, and Z, we could probably fix that. And then they're already picturing themselves in the role and picturing how they can plug in and to see if they're excited about it. So I like those questions.
Awesome. Well, there's so many more questions we could give you, but I think we need to wrap it up at this point. So everyone, if you have not referred a friend, send this podcast to a friend. Shame on you. All this value we're giving you, you owe us. This is free. It's free monetarily, but it's not free in the spirit realm, I guess we would say, in the realm of energetically and universally. We've got to pay it forward and we've got to share the podcast, right? So give back. You can go to superclinicproject.com. You can join our mastermind that all of us run along with Dr. Zano, where we are helping you grow your clinic. You can try that for free for 14 days. You can subscribe to the podcast, superclinicproject.com. And I think that's all we need to cover. So go to the website, review, subscribe, share the podcast, and we will see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the Super Clinic Project podcast. If you like what you hear, subscribe and stay tuned for further episodes of the Super Clinic Project podcast.